Hello my friends and welcome to Paulina Art. Today we're gonna do a loose acrylic floral with a watercolor effect. And I have sketched this beautiful basket, but this is what we're gonna be painting. It can be either sunflowers or roses. In this case, we're gonna do a loose floral with roses. So I've already transferred my sketch onto my watercolor paper. You probably can't see it because I erased most of the lines. I wanted to keep it soft and light. Now the watercolor that I'm using is the Canson 140 pounds. We are going to use acrylic paint to create a watercolor effect, and we're going to try to mimic as much the techniques we use in watercolor, but of course taking into account that we're using acrylic. This is the reason why we're using a really good quality watercolor paper. I have all my colors. I'm only using primary colors plus black and white. I will list in the information box the products that I'm using. It is all folk art. When we paint with watercolor, in order to make a beautiful loose watercolory composition, we use a lot of water. Acrylics, we can use water, a little bit of water, but we cannot use as much water as we do with watercolors because it will just be messy and muddy, and we don't want that. For acrylics, what we'll use instead of water is going to be a blending gel. Another product that works extremely well is this Liquitex Matte Medium, which is the same product I use to varnish my paintings. Now, I always use this Liquitex with Liquitex acrylic paint, but for the sake of this video and because I'm using folk art acrylic paint, I will go ahead and use their own blending gel. Now this is a clear blending gel. I'm gonna place it maybe on the side here, a generous amount. And I'm gonna paint some red roses, and we're gonna do some lilacs at the back and some leaves and a basket. I'm going to start with this brown brush. This brush is a little bit old, so it's not really pointy, and it's going to be perfect for my roses. So I'm going to go ahead and wet my brush, and then I'm going to remove the excess water, and I'm going to dip my brush into my blending gel. I want lots of blending gel. In this case, like I mentioned before, it's going to replace the water. When we use watercolors, we don't use the color white. We just add more water to make the color more translucent. And this is what we're going to do with our red. This is going to give us a soft pink color. Before we paint on our paper, it's always a good idea to test if that's the color that you want on a paper on the side. And I'm going to start with this one. And I'm going to start doing small brush strokes because the petals of the roses are smaller in the center, and they get larger as the rose expands towards the end of the rose. I'm going to go ahead and do all my roses. It looks nice and soft, and that's the effect I'm looking for. This is exactly how you would do it with a watercolor. Because we're trying to create that watercolor effect, we're going to keep our strokes loose. We're going to leave a lot of white spaces because that's okay for watercolors. And a last rose down here. The petals on the outside, like I mentioned, they get a little bit larger. I also like to paint this. There's a bow here. I'm not sure you can see it, but our bow is gonna be red too. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a light layer of my soft red. Okay, it's looking good. I'm gonna start working on the basket, and because I know red and purple are analog colors that create harmony, I'm gonna mix a little bit of purple in here using my red and my blue. I'm gonna see if that's the color I want. And again, I'm gonna add a lot of water, gel medium in this case. If it was watercolor, yes, I would use a lot of water. And I'm gonna start creating my basket that's almost a little dark. We wanna keep it nice and loose. And we're going to add some more gel medium. We're going to create the bottom of our basket. You might want to add a little bit of shadow maybe in here. We can start doing that. And that's looking good. We're going to go back to our roses, and we're going to start adding a little bit darker in the center, a darker red. But again, we're going to use our gel medium. Make sure it's not super dark. We're building our color just the way we would a watercolor. Roses are always darker in the center, and they go lighter towards the outside petals. Try not to cover the white spaces that you left in there, because like I mentioned before, with watercolors, it's okay to leave a lot of white areas on the paper, especially when you're doing a loose floral, like the one we're trying to achieve here. We're gonna let that be, and maybe we can do a few leaves. For the leaves, I'm gonna use an angled brush. I feel this works really well. We're gonna rinse our brush, get rid of the excess water. We're gonna dip our brush. First we're gonna mix a little bit of green. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna use my blue and my yellow, and I'm gonna mix a nice light green. I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow because I find that's too dark. Is this the green I want? Nope, let's add a little more yellow. Yeah, that's the green I want. What we're gonna do, my friends, is we're gonna dip the brush into the medium. We're gonna move it around like this, make sure there's a lot of medium. We're gonna pick up the green on this end and the yellow on the other end. This is called double loading the brush, or a one stroke technique. And what we do is we move the brush back and forth until it's blended. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do some leaves in here. By doing that, we're gonna put the inside of the yellow in the middle and the toe of the brush towards the end. And we're just gonna wiggle and do some beautiful leaves in here. If we want it a little bit more loose, we'll just add more of our medium. We'll get a little more green. That's another leaf in here. Then you start looking at your composition. Where do I need a little bit more green in here? Don't worry if it's not perfect. This is a loose painting, and that's what we want it to look, nice and loose. We don't want to worry about making it perfect. I'm gonna add another leaf around here. And maybe one out here. Okay, this is looking good. We can add a few branches. We're going to add some lilacs in here, and for that we're just going to add a few branches with our same brush. Lilacs tend to be a little bit droopy, and we can also add some greenery, just some branches coming to the outside, which it really adds to the roses. We're going to leave it at that. We don't want to over paint. We don't want to add too much because we want to keep it nice and loose. I feel we can go back and add a little bit more red to the inside of our roses. We're going to dip in our medium and we're going to add a little bit darker red in here. And our roses are starting to become very beautiful and lively. You can add a little bit to the outer petals. Let's make sure we got lots of medium in there. Okay. Let's go back to our ribbon and add some more red. We still want to create a loose effect with our ribbon. Lots of medium to help with this. Okay, let's do some of our lilacs in here. And since I have my colors, I'm gonna mix my own lilac, which I have some in here anyways from the basket. And this is gonna unify the painting quite nicely. And the way we're gonna do our lilacs is gonna be extremely easy. We're gonna get a Q-tip, wet it a little bit, and we're gonna dip it in our paint. And we're gonna go ahead and just create some nice, beautiful, beautiful lilacs hanging in there. And we're gonna add another one here. We want them to be nice and lacy. And we'll add another one here. Okay, can add a little bit in this corner. Again, we gotta be careful not to overdo it really, because we wanna keep it nice and loose. Sometimes I get too carried away and it just loses that nice effect. Okay, now there's a space in here, and I can add some leaves, and we can make these ones smaller ones. We're going to pick up some of our green and yellow and our mixed media, and we can just we can move our paper around to make it easier for us. We can just press and slide, and that creates little leaves. We can add a few of those ones maybe around here. And a little bit more gel, because we want them to look very loose. We want this to be loose and nice, create a watercolor effect. Can add some in here. Okay, maybe in here. And that's looking nice and loose. We can add a little bit of shadows to make this composition more interesting. And what we're going to do, we're going to pick up a lot of our mixed medium and some of our purple. And we can create a shadow here where the ribbon is on the basket, just to add a little bit of more dimension to the painting. We'll add some shadows. The leaves will create some shadows too. This will add a little bit more volume to your painting. We can add some shadows in this side to create the roundness of the basket. I almost dipped it in the water and I don't want to do that. This can add a little bit of roundness to the basket. And we are going to add maybe a shadow at the bottom. Going to add a shadow in here. Lots of mixed medium. It's looking really pretty. If we want to add a little bit more dimension to our lilacs, we can mix a darker purple. There we go. And we're going to go ahead with the same Q-tip. We're going to dip it in there. And we can add a little bit of darkness just to add a little more volume to them. I think I went over my rose. We can wipe it quickly because it's still wet. And there we go. Where did I look? Ah, here it is. Let's see, what do I want to do? I want to add a little bit more red to my roses without getting too carried away, because I want to keep the loose feel to my painting. I'm gonna add a little bit in here just to make the bow You can keep working on this painting and adding more without getting too carried away. Like I said, the key is to keep it nice and light. What I feel I'm going to do is I'm going to add some nice light pink shadow leaves. I'm getting a lot of my medium in there. Now I'm going to add a few light leaves in here. The shadow leaves, I'm still using my angle brush. There we go. I like that. And maybe in here. There we go. And we can add some branches going out. And I think our painting is coming to an end because I don't want to overdo it. I wanted to keep it light and watercolory looking. But the last thing I'm going to do, and here we can use a lot of water. I'm going to dip my brush into a lot of water. Now I'm going to go into this nice red. And this is what's really going to make it look watercolory. We're going to add some of this to our painting. This is really going to add vibrancy and light to our roses. And this is, my friends, how I create a loose floral with a watercolor feel using acrylics instead, because acrylics are much easier medium to work with. Now the same painting, we can do the same basket with sunflowers. If you would like to see that, leave me a comment and I will come to an end with the video now. If you enjoy this video, you know what to do. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.